Ladies and gentlemen, how are we feeling? Welcome back to a glorious episode of a new series that we are doing on this channel. There it is, pause for effect if you liked it. But nonetheless, we are here with a new series for the new channel because it is still racing season. They're technically in the middle of the racing season, but above everything else, it is still racing season. So, we are here with a good old-fashioned F1 2020. Even though 2021 is technically out, at the same time, I can rock with it. It's a little bit of throwback, a little not a throwback, so we'll kind of keep pushing with this one. Like I said before, F2021 is out now, so I'll probably start with F2. And then, in the few coming weeks, we'll probably see if we can get F1 2021. But from what I've noticed from between F1 2021, it's not really that much of a difference. I mean, the track's the same, the standards are the same. The only difference is they kind of updated like the not the analytics, but like the UI or like the user interface kind of thing to make it look a little bit more fancy schmancy, but not really like too much of a difference. So, but at the end of the day, if you want to kind of keep it updated and make sure you get the same rookies, the same F2 drivers. There's a couple of F2 drivers that are in here that are no longer in the game and or unfortunately no longer here with us. But that is the price that you have to pay. Not the price you have to pay, but it's just it's a part of the game. But nonetheless, to get into it, we're gonna get old-fashioned. Have a good old-fashioned solo driving career. But we already started one. I don't know how far we're down in the thing, so we're just gonna kind of keep a new one. I will at some point in time, because of course you get the guy set up and everything around that nature. I can't edit him to just to show you everything. Just change up with the helmets. There's different helmets you can get. Based on whether or not you're a VIP. And I have I have two accounts kind of in terms of PlayStation, just because one personal and one so I don't screw up my YouTube side. I have one for my personal side, and I have one for my YouTube side. So, regardless, but on the YouTube side, on the personal side, I have all the stuff unlocked in terms of helmets. So I'll show you those, but just to kind of show you that there's a decent amount of things, different types of helmets you can get. So is that the Schumacher? Yeah, those are the Schumachers. Nice. So Michael Schumacher was a, if you don't know, he was a good old-fashioned racer. I don't necessarily know the era, but I know the fact that he is father to Mick Schumacher, if I'm correct. But I gotta double check. Let me not put out a bunch of information that I don't know in terms of that. Yeah, Michael Schumacher, and then he has a son called Mick Schumacher. Yep. So Mick Schumacher is now a racer in F1, just like his father. So that's super cool, super dope. But we can't change the suit yet. We can't change the poses. He doesn't really care too much about it. So, like I said before, but there's there's a bunch of different suits that you can unlock. But I will change the helmet just to, because I don't like this all white one. So. Yeah, why not? Sure, let's make it all. Well, we'll keep it all white. Just keep it standard and everything. But yeah, it's just same avatar. You can't really change the avatar. You can change the name. You can change the audio. Again, they don't have Stanley, so it is what it is. But we're gonna select him.
Of your Formula One journey. Before competing at the top level, many drivers will race in Formula 2. From this screen, you can choose from multiple Formula 2 experiences. The first offers a selection of short scenarios.
Got you.
The short season consists of a shortened Formula 2 calendar with one race per weekend.
Okay.
The full season contains every round with a feature and sprint race in each.
Got you.
And finally, you have the option to jump directly into Formula 1.
So, here's the thing. I've done the full 12 season. It's a lot. When I say it's a lot, I mean it's like that could be one full series. And then F1's a series in itself. So, but you don't want to get that taster. It gives you the idea, but at the same time, I want to have a good fashionability to excuse me, earn as many points, because like let's hypothetically say in these three scenarios that I screw up, that screws up my chances. Excuse me. Oh my gosh, what is gross? That screws up my chances of possibly being able to get some good contracts, some good sponsorship deals. So that way, if push comes to shove, worst case scenario, I just realized that's literally one car. I don't know why it took me so long to realize that, but this is a picture of just one car. That's hilarious. But basically, in the sense like you don't want to screw it up. So F2. Compete in 3 exciting races in 2019 Formula 2 season on your road to Formula 1. How you perform will affect you how you are viewed in Formula 1. How you perform will affect how you are viewed in Formula 1. Compete in 6 single races in the 2019 Formula 2 season on your road to Formula 1, complete with 1-shot qualifying. So, I think that this is the best move for the channel because it gives you a good idea of what Formula 2 is.
Take on the path to Formula 1.
Hold on.
It is a championship where the best up-and-coming drivers in the world must compete in identical cars to hone their skills and showcase their talents to teams in the F1 paddock.
Yep.
Whichever Formula 2 experience you choose, your performance in the championship matters. Finish high up in the table and your Formula 1 career will start on a high, allowing you to more easily negotiate with the top teams on the grid.
Okay, cool. So there's two things. Number one, I honestly I forgot what I was saying. That's super fun. But the second thing is I've seen a lot of guys they actually get the actual F1 slash like basically racing type wheels. I don't know where to get one of those. And if I could, I would use that, not gonna lie. But since I can't, I'm using my basic controller. Team Martin has a good example of, basically the wheels. There's a lot of other drivers out there who are actually like, they prefer the wheels. I prefer the controllers just because, like sometimes with those wheels, like I'll overturn or underturn, and it's one of those things that, you gotta keep pushing. But regardless of everything, so there are a bunch of teams that you can select from. There's Carlin, Art Grand Prix, Dames, Uni Virtuoso Racing, MP Motorsport, Campos, Sabre Jr., Prima, BWT, and Trident. So each of these teams has a different, connection towards their F1. Basically, kind of think of like all of these as your good old-fashioned minor league teams, and the only ones that I really know about, I know a decent amount. I know about Carlin, I know about Prima, I know about BWT Ardent, I know about Trident. And I know about Art. I know about Campos, but I don't really know about Campos. You know what I mean? So, and each of these teams basically has like a connection to that. So if I was to go BWT, right, I would be, in the Mercedes Driving Academy because that's the one that you have the closest connect with. But I think I'm either going to go with Carlin or BWT just because BWT I already kind of selected, luckily. And why not the Mercedes Driving Academy? So we're going to start there. So, like I said before, it's like a super short season. You get 1-shot qualifying. I don't want to run the formation lap just because the formation lap kind of is but you can make it long. 100% is like, we're looking at 40, 50, 60 laps. But I don't want to go 5 laps because that's like nothing. You know what I mean? Especially if you don't do great in qualifiers, you're basically screwed. So I'm going to go with stick with the good old-fashioned 25. AI driver level. We're going to start it easy at 20, like I said before, because we always want to start easy and then go up. Never the other way around. Gameplay settings. You can turn on the flashbacks, which basically says, like, hey, let's say if you crash, you're done. Or not necessarily done. You know what I mean? But, like, basically, like, if you crash, you can basically hit a flashback where to the point we're restarting, or like kind of going back and then taking off from there. I'll turn the flashbacks on for right now because I don't really need them, but at the same time it's good to have them. Park family rules, meaning like it's all of them have to be super identical based on the conditions, versus you can have you can have one car that's like really is good with tight corners while the other one is super fast. It's not even out, so literally keep those things on. Reduce damage. I've seen full on. Full damage is not fun, but it's realistic, but it's not fun. So I'm gonna keep it reduced. Just to kind of get safety car is off. For rules and flags are on. Obviously, you gotta have those rules and you gotta have your flags. Corner carrying strategy. Keep it regular. Not gonna lie. Strict is a lot. Race starts assisted. I don't know. I've never seen. Oh, assisted versus manual. Yeah, same thing. Now, on the wheels, there's a little button in the back where you can hit it, where you can transition. It's a lot to do it on a controller, so I'm gonna keep that on assisted. Tire temperatures, same thing. And I really don't care about that other assist and stuff like that. But we're gonna start the season, and we're starting with the good old-fashioned Bahrain. Bahrain, yeah, one-shot qualifying, and Bahrain, which I have no idea where that is, but that's perfectly fine. So let's keep it pushing. And here we go. And like I said before, oh, yeah, also, MLB's coming to the show. Not MLB's coming to the show, haha. So we're going to finish up the MLB season. There's a couple of new series that I would love to introduce, such as Life is Strange 3, because apparently that dropped, and no one told me. Kidding. But Life is Strange 3, I definitely want to knock that bad boy out. And a couple other things that I may have. Just to kind of get, some good old-fashioned, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So, now the one thing I do want to talk about is the tire compounds. So you're looking at M, S, and all these M's, and you're like, what do these mean? So, each different tire compound has a different style and a different setting. Now, if I have it correctly, if I remember it correctly, the Super Soft, oh crap, I dropped my controller, and that's not super fun. And now I have a mic. Oh, okay, now we're racing. Alright, I'll tell you guys what the compounds later. Okay, here we go. So, since I got a little bit of time. So the super soft the soft compounds are the ones. We're gonna take this corner. Nice. Nice. Outside. Yep. So the soft compounds are the ones. I've raced this literally like hundreds and hundreds of times. I'm not gonna lie. This is like the one track that I know by heart, because it's the first one you got to do. And when you've done a full season where you're going around the track at least like 15 or 10-15 times, and you do that at least 3 times, like, it's the one track that I know the most about. Every other track, especially at the end, I have literally like zero idea. So I have no idea what I'm up against. I have no idea. I hate that part. I always hate this part. It's the one part that I can never get right, because it's a super awkward turn that I always forget it exists until it's done. But we're looking good so far. We're at P1 right now. Let's get back on the track. Nice. Okay, too much. Okay, back. All you gotta do is kiss the apex. All you gotta do is kiss it. So the apex is the top. It's where the top part of the corner is in terms of everything. Oh yeah, we're in great shape. We're in great shape. We're holding consistently at P1. We're in beautiful shape right now, ladies and gentlemen. It's a one-shot qualifier, and we did our job. I'm going to finish this bad boy off with a P1 pole victory.
Okay, good job, mate. Really well done. That was a fantastic drive.
Yep, we're in P1. Nice job. Very good. So we're holding well at pole position. Now, of course, I jumped right into this, so there's no explanation. You're just like, what does any of this mean? I will explain you deeper when the race actually comes out to play. Right?
So qualifying is complete and we're all set for an exciting race tomorrow. Your top 3 are the Scientist, King, and Juan Manuel Correa. It's time to leave for now, but we'll be back tomorrow when the feature race gets itself underway.
Okay, so now that I have time, let's explain everything. Based on the tire compound, they have different motivations. They have different settings and different styles for each of the different racing. Meaning that if you have a soft compound, It's more of the ones that you can basically get a little bit of speed out of it, but it's really made for those kind of like weaving in and out. But you're pretty basic. Medium's your average tire, so you're getting an average amount of like whipping around corners as well as average be able to get speed, balance. Hard is the ones you're basically like we're doing those on Abu Dhabi, where it's just like a bunch of maybe like one or two tight corners. And it's just, from the rest of the time, it's just straight. Super soft are the ones that you're kind of using, like, you're going, like, windy roads. Like, Monaco will probably use super soft. Not really super soft, but you know what I mean. That's basically, every different compound has a different style. And based on that style is determining of how well or how effective they are in certain different tracks. But, that's the first thing. The second thing, we're in this future race. Jumping right into it again, like a lot of this is kind of like pushed, but not necessarily. I promise, I guarantee, I'm not gonna just put up a video and not just literally just like explain and watch it like you've never seen this before. Trust me, I'm walking you guys through this. So there's different stages when it comes to F2 as well as F1, in terms of the race weekend. So a race weekend is usually a race week, meaning Wednesday it's usually practice 1. And then if you're F2, Thursday's practice 2. Friday's usually qualifying. Saturday's usually your sprint race. And then Sunday's usually your feature race.
Here in Sakhir. Down on the grid, the engineers are making their last checks, and today's race will be underway shortly.
Yep. Now, each of those races determines your points for the season.
Opportunities around the 3.36 miles of the Bahrain International Circuit. These young F2 drivers to show what they can do. The best passing opportunity right up there at turn 1, and we should see plenty of action there. But there's another not long after at turn 4. There are 9 right-handers, 6 left-handers, and the possibility that we could see some flat spots in the tightest of those left-handers. That's turn 10.
Nice. So, based on those,
three-time winner around here in 1 week, I believe, back in 2012. How on earth do you make the tyres last around this racetrack? They degrade so quickly.
To be honest, the key to the race is having a good
wow,
start
you got 4
so
points.
you can
Nice.
get your car into a good position. Then save the tires as much as you can and push just at the end.
Very true. So, here's the thing.
As we're now moments away from the off,
I will let them take. I'll let the commentators take over.
Today's race. The scientist lines up on
Nice.
pole position. With
We got King behind us. Nice.
alongside.
Okay.
Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Correa, Boccolacci, Jack Aitken, and Aylott, Giotto, Galeo, Matsushita, Sergio Sette Camara, Alesi, Schumacher, Tatiana Calderon, and Joe, De Vries, Latifi,
Oh, Latifi.
Mazepin, and Ralph Boschio.
Ah, freaking Mazepin. Sorry, I have there's a whole thing about that. I'll explain my whole hatred of Mazepin.
So let's go down.
Everybody who knows F1 or Formula 1 racing understands why we hate Mazepin. It's a whole thing.
Okay, we got pole. Now let's get the double with the race win.
Nice. So, just to explain a little bit everything. Like I said before, usually in F2, Wednesdays is your, like Monday through Tuesday, you're kind of going over like the racetracks, you're going over game plans. Wednesday's usually your first practice. Thursday's your second practice. Friday's your qualifying. Saturday's usually your sprint racing. And Sunday's usually your feature racing. Now, each of these races gets you points on the leaderboard. Whoever ends up with the most points at the end of the leaderboard is usually the F1 or F2 champion. Meaning, they had the highest amount of points means they were consistent across all the spectrums. Now, of course, every single race is independent. Meaning, it's about like having like the number of wins. But each one of the wins, whether your placement, I think it's like, I believe if when you start winning races, like your first win, if you're pole 1 or P1 place 1, first place is like 25 points, then top 5 is like 15 to 10, and then like under top 10 is like 5. But at the end of the day, you're getting decent amount of points, and you're always continuously getting points regardless. Just for finishing and just for doing things. But the higher place, obviously, the more points you get, and it's easier to kind of keep a consistency and create that gap between the season. But Above everything else, there's nothing really set up for our track because we got those park family rules. So we're just gonna start the race. Let's get into it. Now, of course, there's different ways, different cameras, but I like this camera the best. However, let me just change this to, because like you could go the nose, you can go wing, you can go near chase or far chase. I'm gonna go far chase so that you guys can see a little bit of everything, and not just me, or not just that little single face. And the best way you gotta get around these tracks is kind of looking for that apex. So what do I mean by the apex? So the apex is, I'll show you, it's like right where, it's the peak of that corner, where if you're looking for that top part, it's just enough where you're basically getting the corner as tight as possible. Kind of went a little bit wide there. You're getting the corner as tight as possible, and then you're riding it out. And then, but you don't want it, but you're trying to do it your best, as much as possible in real terms, to do as least amount of turning as possible. Because the more turning that you have, the slower that you kind of are. But like you guys see how slow I am going around that corner, where we're dropping down almost like 50 miles an hour, which doesn't sound like a lot, but at the same time, when you're going 50 miles an hour on an active racetrack, that's basically nothing. So the more that you have to turn, the slower that you are, and as well as and then you're also taking a lot of wear and tear off of your tires. So it's a lot of things about trying to maximize, maximize the amount of the least amount of time out of those corners, as well as just above everything else, just trying to make sure that you're not turning too much to slow down your lap time. Because again, the fastest lap time, that's another, that's an even more point. So literally everything is kind of like things. But I'm in a very good place right now. We're 6 seconds ahead of the competition right now, or at least in front of Correa. Like I said before, this is where I'm like, all right, let's start with easy and slowly but surely start making our way uptown and see how that goes. But like I said, this is also one of those, Bahrain is one of those tracks that I've done literally 1,000 times. So I know this track in and out. So I'm not too worried about this track. It's more so about the other tracks that I'm kind of concerned about. But what I'll probably do is, this one will probably be, crap. There we go, we're good. This race will probably be, not race, but more so this episode will probably be, I will probably do one full one shot lap thing, and one shot lap or one shot qualifying as well as race day. But every single race, I'm going to change my jumpsuit, I'm going to change my helmet, if I have the ability to, you know what I mean? So, but like I said before, we are literally crushing it, 10 seconds ahead of the competition. So, since I have the time, let's talk about it. So, like I said before, today there will also be episodes of MLB 2021, the show, just to finish out our Padres season, and just to hopefully get ourselves into the playoffs. That way we can actually out here hoist up that trophy, and we'll go from there. I do have a lot of things. We are finally bringing back Need for Speed Heat, and the reason why, so full disclosure, I'm not gonna lie to you guys.
Great work.
Full disclosure, when I had Need for Speed Heat, I was using it through PSN Now, or PSN Plus. It was one of the two. Anyway, or EA Play. And after a while, I literally stopped paying for it. So literally, I stopped using the services, but then I lost the rights to basically play the game. So that's why the series had to stop abruptly, and I was like, ah, crap, I gotta stop right here. And it's super duper really sucked, because it felt weird because I cut off in the middle. That was freaking gross. I am so sorry. I have no idea where that burp came from. That was gross. I just burped into the microphone. That was disgusting. Anyway, so I had to cut it off in the middle of the season. It was super weird. It was super awkward. It was super comfortable. But now I can confidently say that if not today, because I know I have to literally catch back up, because I have to basically, get it to a point where I was back at before. So I have to. It's probably gonna take me about a week. So I would say next Friday, and or next Wednesday, we will be bringing back good old-fashioned Need for Speed Heat, as well as we'll be doing a couple throwback episodes with Need for Speed Payback, because Need for Speed Payback was another one where I wish I had finished it, and I never did. But now, if you guys see in the top right corner, there is S1, S2, S3. You probably wonder what each of that means. Basically, each of these means is sectors. So each sector has a different type of track style, as well as basically it's based on your time. Now, of course, purple is your personal best. Green, it means you're going on par, kind of that same way. And then red is basically you're behind. However, this is all based on personal times, not necessarily based off of it's personal times, but it's also based off of the safety car or pace car's time. Meaning if you kind of and this is more in qualifying sense, but on the sense of race day, if you and this is what's weird, if you get out the fastest lap of all time and you're not getting a consistently fastest lap, because there's like 146 is about, in a genuine sense, maybe you could drop down to 130 in that sense of things, but it's really, really hard because you have to be perfect all the way around.
To the car
Crap.
18.2 seconds.
Ah, see? Okay. So this is the reason I'm aware.
For that last incident.
So that is the specific reason of why I hate that corner. Because of the fact that, technically speaking, if you come in too hot to that corner, you will overshoot the track limits. And based on the overshooting the track limits, there's time penalties. So literally, there's 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, and 10 seconds, I think. In the sense of I think there's 10 seconds. So 2 seconds is basically just basically you overshot your boundaries. Here's a 2 second penalty for basically cutting the corners and doing blah blah blah. 5 second penalties are for collisions, meaning if you basically out here really, bust it, basically force a guy out and just start bullying and bodying people. Mind you, we're going 170 miles an hour. Bumping someone at 170 miles an hour is the definition of them going into a wall or not. You know what I mean? So they're bro, even if they don't go into a wall, you bro, you can't do that. And then if you do cause an accident, there's a 10-second penalty, which is the whole thing. I've never gotten a penalty for the pit lane, in the sense of you can get a penalty for the pit lane if you're going too fast, right? Same thing, you get a penalty for that. There's a lot of penalties, there's a lot of rules. It's surprisingly a very organized, and I mean this when I say this, a very organized, racing league, where it's not just about, a bunch of random circles, literally going in circles and circles and circles like NASCAR. Just NASCAR, just how it is. But you see more competitiveness in Formula 1 racing than you see in NASCAR. You see a lot more competitive racing in Formula 1 racing. Because of the fact that there's a lot more curves, there's a lot more twisty corners, and there's a lot more competition. Besides, what I'm doing right now, which is completely out of the competition league. But above everything else, the biggest thing I'll say is just it's a lot more entertaining. If you actually watch Formula 1 highlights, it's really, really, really entertaining. It's scary sometimes because of with Anton Hubert, unfortunately, rest in peace. And other, in other races, literally, it can be scary. It can be, because remember, you're going 170 miles an hour. And if you go 170 miles an hour in the wrong place, sometimes that means you're going into the barrier. But a very good example of how bad racing can be is, a perfect example was, I believe, I forgot what league, or not what league, but what track it was, or basically what city. But I think it was Paris. I think it was France. And they were in France, and this was 1944. So racing's been around for a minute. But during that race, there was at least 80-something people, like 80 drivers who passed away from pure just racing because of the amount of, and in all sincere fashion, because of the length of how, the length of time, the safety protocols, and above everything else, just like, because what happened back in the old, like, not olden days, more so back in the times where you had racing, it wouldn't just be a race on a condensed track. It would be a race across basically like the entire city. So we're talking about, the same race would be maybe 400, I'm sorry, not 400. Like, it would be basically, imagine kind of like going from, it would basically like, okay, like to play into Maryland terms, it would basically be racing around like PG County. And it's that length in terms of everything. So when you had races like that, it was a lot harder to kind of get, the safety guys out there who could put out those extinguishing fires, who could pull them out of those cars when they crashed, or if they did crash. And fortunately now we're at the point where, we made a bunch of rules and a bunch of things, like the Halo ring, which is kind of that little circle that you see on top of. It's a weird little circle if you see it kind of on, in the car. Sorry, I'm getting on track. Literally, the circle and the Halo ring. That's the same thing. And I watched the I think it was Belgium Grand Prix last week, and there was one guy, not one guy, but basically there was a guy, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. Of course, if you know racing, you know those names. If you don't, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There was a crash where literally Max Verstappen, hit a bump and literally popped up on top of Hamilton's car. And if it was not for that, Halo ring, we're talking about having an entire car sitting on top of Lewis Hamilton's head. So that Halo ring has really, really come in effective. Now, of course, you can take it off because there's some places that use it, some places that don't, like Indy Racing, where they're doing the same thing. They don't have, there's a lot of different leagues out there. They don't have the Halo ring in terms of Indy Racing. There's a couple of other ones that have it, but it's all based off of, what's occurring in, around the world, and whether or not if those specifications are needed in terms of tracks. So basically what I'm trying to say is, just like baseball, racing is, it seems like it itself, but above everything else, it's one of those things that is a very, honest to God, it can be, a very solid, if treated improperly and if done incorrectly, it can be wrong. But the last thing I want to talk about for this episode was Nikita Mazepin. Now, of course, if you know Formula One racing, you understand. You know about Mazepin. You know why we hate Mazepin. But to give the non-F1 guys a little clarification, so Nikita Mazepin. Nikita Mazepin he's an F2 racer, or was an F2 racer. Let me rephrase that. Was an F2 racer, now he's in the F1. But basically, there is a process that you have to go through to make sure that you are mentally, physically, and of course financially prepared to handle F1, because it's a lot of money, but it's also physically demanding. Like, physically it's demanding. So one of them, you have to be, of course, 18 years old. But the biggest two things, you have to do at least 300 laps on the F1 terrain, as well as 300 laps on F1 terrain, and I think there's one more. Basically meaning, those are the qualifications that get you mentally, physically prepared for racing. Nikita Mazepin did not do any of those. Basically what happened was he kind of bought his way into the league. And when you don't go up through Formula 4, Formula 3, then Formula 2, and Formula 1, because mind you, by the time that you get to Formula 1, you're probably like a good solid 28, 29. But good old-fashioned first race.
Well done.
I'll finish talking about this after everything on terms of the showmanship. But I do want to end talking about that, just because it's a good topic to talk about.
Here's our winner pulling their Arden into Parc Ferme then. What a fantastic race. Davide, what do you think made the difference here?
I think they kept a cool head. That's why they won today. Smooth, steady, everything bad that happened to them, they handled it calmly and professionally. That's what let them focus on getting the best out of everything else. The car, the strategy, they managed to keep out of trouble the whole way around.
As they make their way down to the podium, there's no denying the strength of the Arden team. Arden aren't afraid to take risks on new talent, and it certainly looks
Yes,
like
sir.
it paid off today.
First win for the season. Oh, they get, honestly, if you don't have one, they actually give you a. I just realized oh yeah, the champagne thing, and of course Daniel Ricciardo shoey. If you don't know it, you've got to look it up. It's really funny. It's so disgusting, but it's also really equally hilarious. But to finish the conversation, and to get everything done, just so I can understand everything, and also so I can end this episode. So Nikita Mazepin doesn't do any of this. Basically, he buys his way to kind of Formula 2, starts racing, does decent enough to get to Formula 1. But then you realize when he gets to Formula 1
So then,
that clearly
how
he
this
is
result
not.
affects the Drivers' Championship. The scientist increases their championship lead. And now, Davide Valsecchi, let me
Nice.
ask you, who
I got
is your
27
driver
points for
of
that.
the day?
Look at Guangzhou. It was fantastic all race long, and he showed me a great talent and fantastic quality. It's for that is my driver of the day.
And now a look at the team standings. Arden moved to the top of the table.
Of course, it is.
Goodbye for now then, but we really are just getting started. Make sure you join us again for Lights Out tomorrow.
So, oh my God, he started at 7 and got up to 4th. That's solid. That's solid racing, bro. I mean, look, honestly, Zhao, I don't blame him for being the racer of the day because he went from up 7 places. Anyway, so Nikita Mazepin doesn't do any of this. Basically, what he does is he buys his way into Formula 2, and then races decently for a season, and then jumps to Formula 1. The problem is he's not ready to go to Formula 1. He's starting to slowly but surely show up and start doing things properly, but that's after a season of possibly doing a really bad season of just not terrible racing, as well as endangering other drivers, because he doesn't understand the track. And when you don't understand how to take your car around the track, how to kind of handle the car around the track, as well as basically the above everything else, the sportsmanship that you see enough times when you race, a good enough races. Because literally there's 4 different pieces, well, 5 really. There's Formula E, Formula 4, Formula 3, Formula 2, and then of course the big leagues, Formula 1. So you don't necessarily have to go through all of those stages. Literally, you could just stop at let's say, you could stop at you could start at Formula 3 if you're 18 and ride the waves up into Formula 2 and into Formula 1. Now, of course, everybody knows about racing, understands that racing is not about the driver; it's about the carts. Meaning, if you can handle one single cart, and you've gotten to the point, it's kind of like the same way when you buy a new car, right? You buy a car, you drive it out, it feels good, it feels nice. Don't get me wrong, some of them are terrible, and some of them are really, really great cars, or carts, or, yeah, let's just say cars. So, during this time, when those cars are kind of being activated, you have to get used to those cars. You have to, feel them out, ride them out, do a bunch of different things, different moves, just to make sure that you have maximized your potential out of the cart. Once you have mastered one cart, you move up to the next, and the next, and the next. The problem is, Formula 1 cars are so powerful, as well as so much, they need so much, force, that you have to be physically prepared, as well as physically, in shape to handle them. Because trust me, if you see most of those drivers, like Lewis Hamilton, like Daniel Ricciardo, like Max Verstappen, these guys have serious workout regimens. And I mean serious. I'm talking just as much as intense as sometimes as football players. And in all sincere fashion, and I mean this so seriously, F1 drivers have probably one of the most, if not the most, intensive workouts of all athletes across the boards. They're not just drivers, they are also athletes because of the fact of, like, if you see them train and how much they have to train, as well as their reaction time. Their reaction time for most Formula 1 guys, we're looking at a 222, like maybe like 0.2 milliseconds, which is higher in terms of reaction time than MLB baseball players. You know what I mean? So, and we're talking about doing that same thing at 200 miles an hour or 180 miles an hour. So, these guys have earned my respect day in and day out. But above everything else, that is going to be it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, we're going to hit into our next, our good old fashioned next race, and keep it pushing, and keep on grinding for the rest of the season. But again, we got 9 points ahead, second place in points. Both the Americans are out here, running it. But at the same time, I got 27 points. Second place guy's 18. Jordan King's got 15. 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, and so on and so forth. But above everything else, is it top 10? Yeah, top 10. Excuse me. But above everything else, ladies and gentlemen, it's gonna be it for this episode. I'll see you guys next time. We're gonna hop into our next race. But as always, stay safe, stay cool, and always make some moves. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.